Hello, everyone. Coach Nikki. I am actually here in Lake Tahoe. I just got back from Peru last week. It feels like an absolutely wonderful whirlwind. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about just some ideas that as I was traveling, and probably as you have traveled to different places in your life, that some of the things that are really important for us to bring back and to incorporate into our lives from different cultures, from different experiences, and things that we can use from other people to, like I said, really just kind of make us feel more connected in the world. So I got to go to Peru for 2 weeks. My son had applied to do a volunteer trip in the hospital. He wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. So he wanted some experience in these early years of high school to see if that's what he really wants to go into, and two, just an opportunity to give back. He also speaks Spanish, which was really, really helpful in Peru. And so I got to be and accompany him. And it was really special because we actually got to do separate things. So he was able to work in the hospital, which is his passion. And then they plugged me into different orphanages for teens and for women on that have been in like prostitution and different, like, really horrific issues in their life. So it would be impossible for me to explain all of the things that really changed my life and affected my heart and what I want to bring back. But what I really want to talk about is just some kind of high level things that we can look at that I learned of lessons in Peru. So I think really first starting with the art of traveling. And so often when we travel, we expect like the ups and downs in life, and we don't expect traveling to be easy, right? Like we know, okay, whether you're driving or whether you're flying, you're probably going to get in some like little confrontation with whoever you're traveling with because it's lack of sleep, or you miss your flight, your bag is heavy. There's so many things that happen when we travel that we kind of expect, and so we laugh a little bit more. So if you're whatever, you've made it there and then you can't get a cab, or you can't find whatever your next wherever you're going, you tend to be a little bit, or at least me, tend to be a little bit more lighthearted traveling because you expect issues. And I think thinking about that with life is a really great way to embrace the ups and downs and uncomfortables of our everyday. So when we're thinking about traveling, it's just reminding yourself to go with the flow. Also, when we travel, we tend to be super um, diligent on what we're packing, how we're packing, um, getting us as organized as we can for like the best bets to simplify traveling because we know it's hard. And I think that that's also a really important thing. Like my bags are always like when I'm traveling, very organized because you don't want your stuff everywhere. You don't want to have like too many pants and not enough long sleeve shirts, or you don't want to forget your running shoes, or there's all kinds of things, especially like when you're thinking about like your important documents. So your phone, your passport, your money, those kind of things. You tend, or at least I don't want to say that you tend because everybody is very different, but I tend to be very organized traveling. And it's something I want to bring back at home, and taking a little bit more time to even like the clothes that I wear, really simplify them every day. The vitamins that I take, have them in the little trays, super simple. You just open them up and you take them. Putting my phone in the same place every single day, my car keys in the same place every day. So these like simple things that maybe we spend a little bit more time when we're traveling organizing them is something that I want to take back personally to my everyday life. Um, Another thing and I know this is goes without saying, but when we travel to other countries, is really remembering how incredibly blessed we are to live in the United States. If you're logging on from somewhere else, when traveling and seeing how other people live in other situations, it really grounds you in gratitude for what we have. And we can tend to always want more and be not quite satisfied with what we have or what we're given, and kind of looking for either what's next or what is not serving us. And when we're traveling, when you see people who are much less fortunate, we got to stay with a local family, and they were actually like pretty well off for Peru, but they still had very limited hot water, so your showers were cold. They had very limited resources as far as like toilet paper or just kind of like the basic like heat. There's not like heat in the house. There's like our life here in the United States is night and day different to how most people live all over the world. And when you get the opportunity to see that people live very simply, what it helped me is to bring more gratitude to all the little things and the big things that we have in life. Here, my computer that I'm able to talk to wherever we are, that I have AirPods that connect, and I don't have that I'm able to do like just standing here. There's like 100 things to be grateful for, and traveling really shows us that sometimes disconnect that we have with our own life. So I want to kind of also get into the history of Peru and some of the lessons that I learned, not just like on the superficial level of being more organized in my everyday life, like I am traveling, going with the flow more than we can typically do, uh, being more grateful, but also really thinking about like the history of when you go to somewhere like Machu Picchu, and Machu Picchu is only one of the amazing, like there's from the Incas have ruins all over Peru, and in Cusco is where we stayed. You just walk around and there's Inca ruins everywhere. And what really resonated with me is the preservation of culture, and Peru is one of the most preserved cultures in the world of the places that you can travel. And it made me start thinking about the idea of creating a life not just for us, not just to get us through to the end of our life, but what we want to pass on to other people, and how we can create things that really last throughout generations and time. And it can be, I was thinking a lot about like the friendships and family and relationships that we think when we're building. I don't know, actually. I always hate to say we think because I'm not sure what you think. But sometimes in America, we can be very busy with a sense of pushing forward, of uh, kind of like a survival and a more uh, feeling. And what I want to come back with and maybe inspire us to do collectively is think about the things that will be preserved over time. And when you're thinking about a relationship with somebody else, is you investing your love, your kindness, also being able to have hard conversations in a loving way, navigating through dysfunction and trying to build better relationships. Those are the things that are going to last it from like future generations to come. And when I'm looking at like these Inca ruins and I'm looking at, they said like one set of stone, one set of stone was created by multiple generations of one family. So it would be one family and then the son and his daughter and her mom, and they all would work on just this one stone in this beautiful community of these incredible Inca ruins. And what I wanted to come back with is what stone do I want to work on that will last generations after I leave? And how can I really think instead of like new, what's up next? Where do I want to go? Survival is like slowing down a little bit and saying, can can we together, because it's also really like part of the Peruvian culture is working collectively. As we know, like nothing great is ever built alone, that it's a collective energy of what do we want to build together for future generations that will last thousands of years. And that's my hope with Kaya, is that Kaya will continue on and help strengthen not just women, not just girls, but families, communities, make people want to take better care of our environment and our body environment, and slowing down a little bit and really thinking about how we can create this, like, and sometimes it's tactile and sometimes it's these like emotions that are passed on from generation to generation. So I hope that makes sense. But when I was looking at the incredible Inca ruins and thinking about that everything that was taken to build something that will last, I mean, it's been like 1500 years, that will last over and over and over, is, for me, it made me want to slow down and really be more conscious of not just like what's the new marketing, or in a relationship, like, or in my work, is how can I just make it to the end of my life? It made me think about what can I learn from past civilizations. And if we think about like America, America is very new, but there's still so much to learn about being more connected in traditions, being more connected in culture, and having that want to build something that will last for generations and generations. And that's what our families do, right? Like we work hard to have good relationships with our sisters and our mothers and our significant others possibly, and our children possibly, and like creating, and I know it might sound silly, but even like in our pets or animals or like our dogs, is like creating an energy that is passed on from generation to generation, and taking a second to stop and say what's not working, and what is going to, if you're looking at like your life as a beautiful Inca ruin, or like in the United States, is like thinking about like our history, and then how can we get rid of some of the things that are causing us to tumble over, and how can we layer on some of the things that make us strong and that we can pass on from generation, because we really don't want to keep passing on dysfunction. We don't want to pass on, or at least I don't want to pass on this idea of we always need more and want more, but we're forgetting to build that foundation and that structure. So that is one of the huge things that I want, that really like resonated with me, is asking ourselves, what traditions do we want to look at and why those traditions are really good for us culturally. I loved their food, and their tradition around food is they have a light breakfast. They have a really big lunch and a siesta. So it's like everybody gets off work and then they have a light dinner. And what we were told going into Peru is everything's on Peruvian time. So don't be in a hurry. Everything is slower paced. But actually, that wasn't true. Everybody gets up quite early. I don't know everybody, but the town and the city. And when I was out in the highlands with like the local Peruvian women, everybody is up early, whether they're herding llamas or they're putting the fire on the stove. Everybody is up hustling early and they work really hard. Everybody is contributing or what looks like is contributing, and then right around like 1 o'clock, boom, everything stops, and there's a tremendous amount of energy put forth in presenting ancient foods of quinoa and soups and maca and homemade breads that were like this big, and everybody sits and eats and enjoys and relaxes, and then kind of just plays a little bit, like goes for a walk, or just is takes the stress of the day down, and then kind of goes back to work around 3 o'clock and works quite late till about like 6 p.m., and then comes home, has a light dinner, and enjoys company. So food was another thing that I really enjoyed watching. Like, what they have 3,000 different kinds of potatoes, and watching how they use different like herbs and spices and ancient roots to heal. They really believe in ancient medicine as like their food is their healer, especially in the highlands. They don't have their babies in hospitals, they don't have physicians, but they do have an incredible amount of like homemade remedies. And I thought it was really fun because it's a lot of things that we share together. It's a lot of like medicinal soups, a lot of like turmeric and maca and ashwagandha and things that we think are like these like modern superfoods that are like whatever. I don't know even where I mean, I know that they were like used through thousands of years, but to actually have my feet in the soil of where they're grown naturally made me want more of that. So I don't think that I'll ever really be like able to produce all my food because Tahoe's really hard and I'm not great. I mean, of course I'd be great at it if that's all I did. But I went to the farmer's market as soon as I got back and just kind of asked is like, where were these grown? And when food is loved and when food is like really cared for, it nourishes your body at a greater level. So food is another thing. Um, and then also is, and I'll leave you guys with this, is just creating more simplicity in life. And as much as possible, laughing culturally, it's like I really didn't understand what they were saying very often because I don't speak Spanish. I understand a little bit, but what I did understand is lots of laughing and lots of joy and a ton of appreciation for the simplicity of life. And instead of wanting what's new and more and taking a step back and really thinking about how we can simplify our life but still contribute to things that better ourselves, which is always the most important, and then better our families, and then our communities and our neighbors. At the house that we were staying at, she would, and a very small house with like a little teeny front yard, and everybody would pack in at like 1 o'clock, just neighbors, and everybody would just kind of come in, sit down, bring potatoes, like just like whole potatoes that people ate, just bring different things to share. Actually, they eat a lot of guinea pig, and at first I was all but once you kind of get used to things like being different culturally and asking questions, that guinea pigs are actually like a really sustainable way to eat. And not that I ate guinea pig because I'm vegetarian, but that like understanding like different whys that people do culturally. So I'm going to go back through, and I hope this resonates with you guys. I really want this to be something that is impactful and helpful because I appreciate your time so much. I know jumping on these calls, you guys are all busy and we all have so many things going on. So I do work really hard to hope that the messages that we share together can be something that can root in, and maybe it's just a little bit of a spark of what are some of the things as you travel, as I travel, that we can share with each other to build a brighter future for ourselves. So I'm going to go back through just really quickly again, just in case you jumped on a little bit later. But I think the attitude of going with the flow when we travel, we should incorporate more often in our everyday life. And when we're traveling, everything goes up and down. We tend to laugh more about issues. It creates really good stories that we get to share. I'll have to share it with you guys at some point of like, missing. I actually forgot to book a part of our flight home. So, what that piece looks like, showing up to the airport, which we did a day too early, giving away all our money and then having to figure things out. But those are funny stories. And when life throws you loops, instead of like letting it just like, the tension is building, like just kind of take that attitude of travel and say, life is meant to be up and down. This is probably going to be a good story. And the more that we can take things with stride, the less cortisol we have and the happier we get. So going with the flow is one. Um, Two is really that we're all the same all over the world. And the more that you travel, the more that you realize like just because somebody lives in Peru or they live in Africa or they live in Tahoe or they live in Sacramento, or like people are people and people want to be seen, heard, and loved. And if you can take a second to ask more questions about traditions, about why we do the things that we do, that we can learn so much from each other, and that we really realize that we're more the same than we're not the same. So, really, just traveling to me opens up that idea of we all love our children. We all do things to better society as much as possible. So living in that space. Also the gratitude of all the things that we have in the US, so much that we have that people don't have. And looking around and just finding more gratitude for the simplicity of a comfortable bed, for the complexity of having a car, like that's pretty amazing. All of these things that maybe we can tend to disconnect from. Another thing I know I keep like throwing different things in, but is for me, it was really important that I found rest. And it's very hard to take time off work. It's very hard when you are in a work mentality, but teaching ourselves to take sprints and rests, not just in vacation, but in our day, is push really hard for 20 minutes and rest for 5. Push really hard for whatever it is, a month, and take a full weekend off and don't check your emails and don't check your messages. But remembering those sprints and those rests are really, really good for you. They're great for your business, they're great for new ideas. And they're important not just to incorporate once a year when you go on vacation, but all day, every day, is stay focused, work diligently, and then pull back and completely rest. And then just preserving our culture, preserving history, looking at traditions that we want, and then consciously and with great awareness, don't pass on the things that shouldn't be passed on. So, as we are working our way through these beautiful lives that we live, is finding your tribe, your culture, your family, your community, your neighbors, your friends, your Kaya sisters, and look at like what do you want to build? Like what relationships do you want to build? What do you want to pass on to future generations? And just trying to leave when you piece out of this world, just try to leave the world a little bit kinder, a little bit better than we started out. Okay, well, I